Welcome to our webinar. Very excited to have our expert guest, Mario Guerra from Quaker Ridge in New York. Today we're going to talk about how Quaker Ridge drives member loyalty by creating exceptional on-course experiences. Great to have so many people on who are interested and looking to learn. My name is Bodo Sieber. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tagmarshal. You will hear a very German accent with a slight South African twang, very confused, just in case you're wondering. The person who will get the limelight today is Mario, and let's, welcome. And you've already introduced yourself. We feel like we all know you from the last 2 minutes.
That's great. Well, it's great to be here, Bodo. Thanks for having me.
Mario, tell us about your club and tell us about why Drew Dunn, who's on the call, for those of you who's missed it, he's from Eastlake, the famous host of the Tour Championship. He's already congratulating Mario for climbing up the ranks in Golf Digest. Tell us about that and tell us about your club. How many members do you have? What are you famous for? I'm going to stop you because I know you can talk about this for many, many hours.
Sure, I'll keep it brief. For those who haven't heard of Quaker Ridge Golf Club, it's located in Scarsdale, New York, which is in Westchester County, northeast of New York City. About 30 minutes. A lot of our members commute from the city. Quaker Ridge was founded in 1916. And the land was purchased, and in the mid-20s, A.W. Tillinghast was brought in to design what's now the 18-hole golf course that we have. He redesigned 7 holes, added 11 new ones. And that was right around the time when he was also designing Winged Foot, the famous Winged Foot Golf Club right across the street, which will be hosting the U.S. Open this June. So we'll be quite busy. And we'll be helping them as well with anything that we can. So it's going to be a very busy time in June in our area due to the U.S. Open. Quaker Ridge for a long time has been ranked as one of the top 100 golf courses in the world. And the latest Golf Digest ranking, we were ranked number 71. I feel that if you're on the top 100 list, it's an amazing accomplishment. There's so many great golf courses that don't make the list. So we're really proud of that. I think in the 80s, we were as low as like 20th in the United States, but you get so many new golf courses coming in, so it's difficult to stay on the list. We appreciate that. Myself, I've been the head golf professional for 3 seasons, and I'm starting my 6th year at Quaker Ridge. I was an assistant before that. And I have a strong passion for teaching. So what Drew's referring to is every now and then I appear in Golf Digest giving instructional tips and things like that. So one more thing I guess you have here on the slide people can read, but we have been really fortunate to host 2 big USGA majors, the 1997 Walker Cup, which the U.S. team won, and the 2018 Curtis Cup, which is the female equivalent, and also a victorious U.S. team.
Of course, it was rigged.
It's home course advantage. I got to tell you, the Europeans
sure.
So much energy, but I guess it was home course advantage.
I know it's interesting. What's your take on the Ryder Cup this year, which is Mike O'Reilly's club at Whistling Straits? What at this year early form? What do you think? Who's going to take that?
Oh, man, the Ryder Cup is the U.S. team has struggled to get it right, and I would say that the Europeans are really tough to beat in the Ryder Cup. They seem to play more match play growing up than the American players. They seem to have on the European tour, where a lot of them come from prior to coming to the PGA Tour, they seem to develop like stronger relationships. So I think it's going to be a tough task for the American team, but the American crowd will be present and they'll be excited and doing the best that they can to help it's about time that the U.S. takes takes a win, but I'm not betting against the Europeans.
It's a tight one, but we're excited because Le National, where you watched that Ryder Cup, is a new Tagmarshal customer, and Whistling Straits has been with us for 4 years now. So it's great to play along and know a lot about these amazing courses from our side. I thank you so much for the intro. We want to dig into things. Obviously, just a quick introduction on Tagmarshal, because there's so many people on who don't know us. So we are a golf course optimization tool. We help ensure that there's a great flow and pace of play, and that the member and guest rounds at our partner courses are optimal and optimally presented. We have tracked 10 million rounds of golf. We've got about 1 billion data points that we constantly learn from, and obviously every day they get more. And there's actually 250 courses we work with at this point. There's a few on here. That's your famous list of private clubs. There's some really nice ones. Another Ryder Cup post, actually Hazeltine is on here. Quaker Ridge, obviously. And then here's your contingent of the famous, I suppose, daily fee and resort courses. Here's Carnoustie, which is the Open Championship hosts from Scotland. Le National, I mentioned them now. They're about to come on, and Erin Hills were actually our first customer ever in the US, but most of our customers, probably 200 of the 250 are just really good middle-of-the-road courses, and that is where we're making a big difference. We are tech partners to the European Tour, and we are tech and research partners to the USGA as much as we can, because obviously we've got a lot of information and data that we can share and give back to the game. One thing that's always amazing for us to see is what a fantastic community golf is, both on the course, but also with the people that manage it. So we're super grateful to have people like Mario join us. Mario, before we get started, and obviously I'm going to ask your experience as well here, we want to look at what are the key experience factors that matters to members and guests. What is it that really matters? And obviously everybody's a player, everybody's got opinions, but there is a lot of research that's gone into this. And what I would like to do quickly, if I can get it right, is quickly share a poll, launch poll. And I wanted to just ask you guys who are on with us, I don't know how long we have for this, what do you think the key experience factors are? If you want to choose 3 of them, between course design, course conditioning, clubhouse and amenities, pace and flow of play, playing partners, who's in my group, accessibility and tee time availability. So those are generally important in terms of ranking. So let's just get a sense within the group. I think that we can probably leave this running for a while. We're about 20% of the votes in, so this is not Super Tuesday. It's much more serious than that. So Mario, while our friends are busy ranking and rating, so the USGA has done over the years a lot of research. One such a results, a research base was published in 2016, and they found that the top factor, as rated by probably about 20,000 golfers that were quizzed, was course conditioning. At 82% of the players saying that is crucial to my enjoyment. And what's surprising and very close to that is at 74% pace of play. So we always like to add a flow of play and time it takes to play into that equation, because it is all very, very closely related. Mario, do you play a lot? Do you get to play a lot of golf? And obviously you're also traveling and playing. In your personal experience as a player, as well as an experienced manager, what would you say the top 3 are for you, and what is it that you're looking after?
Absolutely. I am really fortunate that I do get to play plenty of golf. I got into being a golf professional because of my passion for playing. So I always keep that as something that's really important to me. I also want to have all the experiences that golfers have. So I do travel, I do compete in golf tournaments. Like I mentioned, I teach, so I want to be able to walk the talk with my students. And I want to experience what our members are experiencing when they go visit other places. So I'm paying close attention to what it feels like to visit another top golf course, and always try to learn and bring something back to Quaker Ridge. For me, if you're filling out a survey, I could see why course conditioning is something that the participants of the survey are going to choose as a top priority. Nobody wants to, it's to play on a, cow pasture, as we say. We want our ball to roll really nicely, have a good lie in the fairway. But being a golf professional, head golf professional, and managing play, and you could see there in that chart how course conditioning is something that we gravitate to clicking on. I personally chose course conditioning as well, but I would say you could make an argument that the pace of play, the flow, and the time that it takes to get around the golf course is even more important. And if you really sit down and think about it, if you go to a golf course, let's say a daily fee golf course, for example, and the conditions are from 1 to 10, 10 being US Open PGA Tour conditions. Let's say that there are 6. When you arrived, perhaps you had to carry your bag from the parking lot to the first tee. You perhaps were not greeted the way that you liked. So you're not really, the course is not really checking all of these boxes right off the bat. But when you get on the golf course, you tee off and the day goes by. You never have to wait. You're never making anybody wait. You play in 4 hours, you get back home to your family. I think that you forget, you would say that you had a terrific day, that you had a great day, and that you would tell your friends that, they can go to this particular golf course and play in 4 hours and have a great experience without any issues. The opposite would be true. If you were checking all the previous boxes, and then when you got on the golf course, it took 6 hours and there were bad interactions, I think you would quickly forget about all the other great things like conditioning. So those are my thoughts as I put, some real thought into this question.
Sure, that's very fair, and I think we often hear that. And look, if things go right, then they go right. But the thing that if it goes wrong really hurts all the other experiences is often flow and pace related. And it's interesting that this next research study that the USGA published at the Golf Innovation Symposium last year in Tokyo looks into what really matters. And Professor Chris Schoonover and Eric Gray, they're from the University of Wisconsin Start. So Christina Schoonover is not only a very experienced researcher, she is also the operations director at Erin Hills. So she's wearing both hats, and she's got a really good insight as to what is a customer experience, what matters to people and how do you design it, but also what is it like to manage a high volume golf operation. So what they found is that there are 1,000 touch points in the golf experience. And if we think about it, across the cycle of engage, meaning where should we go and play, how do we book, phone in, do it online, we arrive, like you mentioned just now, Mario, you walk through the gates, you get welcomed, do you know where you need to go, is there signage or not, and then obviously out on the course, that's where you spend most of your time. That's why this has got a bit of more attention in the cycle, and that's ultimately also the reason why you're going there. Exit means post round, so that's your restaurant and so on, and extend means the club's now reaching out saying thanks for joining us, we'd love to have you back, and by the way, we've got a member guest coming up, or we've got a dinner special that you can consider when you play one of our later tee-off times, or whatever the case is. And then we start engaging again. So across the cycle, there's 1,000 touch points, and they're all ranked across perfect frustrator to perfect delighter. And you note that there's no neutral, because there is no neutral emotion. As a human, we're always slightly biased towards this is better or this is worse. So they're staying away from neutral. So frustrated, dissatisfied, satisfied, delighted. So those are the parameters. And what they found across 1,000 touch points, and this is really incredible to see. Sure, course conditioning, which everyone on this webinar has ranked really highly, is very, very important. But the two factors that are the most polar in terms of absolute frustration and absolute delight are pace and marshalling related. And we start at the negative. Corrective pace of play actions is the overall worst score. So that is your marshal coming over and grunting at you, hey guys, you're slow, get on with it. Okay, so that is a corrective pace of play action. That's what a scientist calls it. And then you've got other speed. Other speed is equally as frustrating, and that is a conundrum, right? And then generally the marshal and ranger role and placement is poorly rated. On the other hand, positive ranger etiquette is the top score across this entire spectrum of experiences. And why? Because it's so unexpected. And I spoke to somebody the other day in Colorado, and he said, do you know what I do when I go play? I find the ranger and I give him $20 just so he leaves me in peace.
That's a smart guy.
Yeah, no. And so the ranger, maybe he's cottoned on to that. He can make more money if he's really angry at people and they'd rather tip him off, but I hope not. Okay, so interesting here. Green and open tees ranked really high. Overall playing speed ranks really high. Obviously up here is also conditioning and so on. But those are all very emotional topics. In your experience, and then obviously you have now had a really good handle on these things for 2 seasons. Is this something that you think in conversation and obviously with your member base that would come out like this, and if you do it really well, that you get the rewards, and if you don't do it well, then you hear all about it?
Absolutely, we've seen this firsthand at Quaker Ridge, and as I look at this, it was really hard before to impossible. I mean, I guess the Ranger can be bought with $20, but objective information, cannot be changed. So it was really hard before, the old-fashioned way to, when you, let's say as a head golf professional, you hired a ranger and send them out on the golf course to ride around. As you look at this chart right here, or these points, you were basically setting them up for failure and setting yourself up for failure without Tagmarshal, because inevitably that ranger would ride around the golf course and get to a group who perhaps had only been waiting for a hole and was already frustrated, and they didn't have any information. So how could they have corrective pace of play actions? They would
Sure.
typically be reactive to the opinion or information they received from the players, and make mistakes that way, and look how damaging that can be to the overall experience. So we've learned a lot with Tagmarshal on how to have, I guess, positive. We don't have a ranger, but we do send any one of our team members out there equipped with information, with the tablet, and the way that we interact, the things that we say are very positive and are about taking action and improving their position, rather than saying that they're slow or things that could create a negative interaction.
We want to dig into that a bit more, but one of the things that you mentioned is opinion, right? So, and that is where often you're finding that a golfer, a group of golfers get approached, and there is no information, there's no data, so they feel like somebody has the opinion that they're slow, and obviously nobody wants to be called slow. It's I spoke to a media person the other day, where he said, well, I get it, it's like you coming over to me and saying my wife's ugly, like I'm not going to like that, so I get defensive over that, and I actually lash back at you. So this is where this becomes really tricky. So here's another set of research that comes from a company called Players First. They do tons and tons and tons of post-round sentiment surveys, and what they find is in line with what you said earlier. If the flow is good or if it's medium, then that equals a high net promoter score. So the net promoter score is I suppose, a label of rating a service that you would have all seen. And basically how it goes is out of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend, to promote the service or product that you've just experienced. So this is normally what your airline wants to know. And the rule is that anything 7 to 10 is, I will say positive things about it, whether I'm asked or not, because it really delighted me. And on the other hand, if it's 0 to 3, I will say negative things about it, and I will probably throw it on social media, and I was not happy with what I experienced. And anything in the middle, 4 to 6 is sort of, well, it's as expected. I'm not going to react to it. So, but what they found is that the Net Promoter Score is heavily influenced if there's bad flow of play. And that doesn't, sometimes that happens. Sometimes it happens more often. There's certain times of the day that it may happen, but how do we know? And another thing that influences the Net Promoter Score really heavily positively is on-course staff interaction. And if we look at, you mentioned it earlier, it starts with how am I approached as I arrive at a club. So if I'm feeling welcome, if the flow is good, if I meet on-course staff, those are sort of the three things. If we do them well, that Net Promoter Score is sky high. And then if I'm not quite feeling welcome, if the flow is bad, if I've had to wait, lots of tee box waiting, and maybe there was no on-course interaction at all, or it was negative, then that's perceived as bad. There's also a correlation to how that relates to restaurant visits, which is obviously a big business factor too. So in your experience, obviously at Quaker, there's smiles all around. How do you guys make sure that that this happens? And we're going to talk about the technology and how you use that just now, but just in general, you're obviously creating a really positive culture in general, and your staff and your team are really empowered to provide all of these points and tick those boxes every round and every single day.
Absolutely. We're a private golf course, so our number one priority is achieving the absolute highest most positive member experience. So we're there to make every interaction a positive one, always smiling, greeting, making sure that the guests feel like members. We want to know the names of the guests prior to arriving there. We've actually invested in other technologies besides Tagmarshal that help us do that. We have a Quaker Ridge app that now allows our members to order food on the golf course. It lets us know when they're on property as soon as they come through the gates. And so we're prepared. So all of that is at the forefront. And then Tagmarshal fits in with that to always know where they are on the golf course playing with them. So it's absolutely crucial for us that our members, play in the time they expect to play, so they have more time to use other parts of the golf club, such as the restaurant, hang out with their families at the pool, and things like that. So we're always paying attention to each one of those points, but realizing with Tagmarshal that perhaps the most important is what's happening while as they tee off and during the time they're on the golf course.
We're going to talk about time and the time factor, and you are, and so am I suppose. We got young children, right? And you're about to do it all over again.
So I have a 17-month-old, yes, and we have another one due April 17th. So time is really important for me as well.
For sure. So we'll talk about that just now, but let's look at the technology question. So from your point of view, if you're looking at how you're deploying Tagmarshal and when you started out, how does the process work for you, and who looks at this? Who looks at this thing, and what do they see?
Absolutely. So we have a director of outside operations, starter, Rich Uva, and his team, what we call our outside operations team, which we know is so crucial because they're typically the first interaction with members and guests, and also the last. We are a primarily walk-in golf course, and even when our members take a golf cart, there's a caddy. We do require caddies up until 3 p.m. So our members sometimes are not even aware that a caddy has one of the GPS tags that you can see here in this slide, but the way it works, every morning, the outside operations team brings out the tags in the order that we're going to send them out to the podium. And then the caddies have been assigned to the members, or rather to the tee times the day before, so they know what time they're going and they know what time they need to arrive. They typically arrive to the first tee 10, 15 minutes early. They grab one of the GPS, we call them tags, and they put it in their bib. And as soon as they hit a certain geofence, once they tee off, we know that they're live and we can track them throughout the round. We have Tagmarshal live on our cell phones. We have it on the tablets, so that when we go out on the golf course, we have a bigger picture there on the tablets that you provided for us. And we have it computer screens in the golf shop. Everybody's always checking on it because we realize that's such an important factor. We want to get ahead of it before there are any issues, so we can start to see how, which I'm sure we'll talk about later when we look at stats and all that, but how a group is falling behind or et cetera, things like that. We also use it in other ways. We use it, like I said, we have a Quaker Ridge app where members can now order drinks while they're playing. They can order food. We have it on a screen at the halfway house, which is after our 9th hole. And that's helped expedite the time that it takes to get food, because our team inside who's preparing the food, they can look at their screen and they can see that, Bodo is on the 9th tee, and you typically get your cappuccino and your turkey sandwich. So I probably should start getting those ingredients ready. So everything is about the flow of the experience of playing and all of the things that line up with that. We can use Tagmarshal to facilitate for all parts of the operation and club staff.
I'll help your efficiency by ordering beer. I don't need cappuccino. So what tee sheet do you guys use, and how does that process work?
So we've been using 4 tees for a long time, and even that, a few years back, that was a very positive technological change. Our members can now book tee times from home rather than have to call the golf shop, et cetera. So it was really great to find out that Tagmarshal integrates so well with 4 tees. So it's all communicating with each other. So we just link the tee time from 4 tees to Tagmarshal and the tag, so that we know this is the 7:25 tee time, and we know the names of the players, etc. By a click
Mario,
of a really.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. What I was saying, just by a click of a button, it's linked together.
100%. We're going to look now how that actually translates. One of the things that I just want to mention, you guys obviously use what we call the classic tags. Drew at Eastlake uses a two-way walkers, which is the unit on the far left. So his caddies and his players just have one of these. And then we've got a lot of cart courses that either install a version of these tags hidden away under the dash, so they know where the carts are at all times and they can track those, including geofencing and so on, or we do have a screen option as well. So these food orders and obviously now there's yardage and two-way communication that can happen is all part of that. I think where the classic is a really nice match for Quaker is because you are a traditional club with these traditional values, and that is something that I think works really well. And you mentioned a lot of times the players don't even know that it's there, right? Which is great, because if they've just got a great flow around, they're coming off the course saying this was awesome, why would they need to see technology? If it happens in the background, it's just fine. Okay, so let me jump ahead. So you mentioned that your team on course now has this information, and in the back office you have screens up. Here's an example of a course where you'd now see in terms of line of sight what this looks like. Obviously that's a 27-hole facility, and you've got these yellow icons, which is your on-course player assistants that are out there right now. And then you've got all these playing groups. So where Tagmarshal uses information that it gets every couple of seconds from whatever technology units we've got in play, calculates what is the risk to your field, because you've got a responsibility to individual players, but you also have a responsibility to your full day of 200 people. And you want to make sure, like you said earlier, that you're ahead of potential issues and bottlenecks before they arise. And like you said so rightly earlier, that is really difficult to do with traditional methods, where you're just going out there trawling a really, really big area with line of sight only. And what do you have to go by? You know, it's just, is there distance, a gap between the groups, and why is that? Is that because one group's quicker than expected, or is one group really slowing down, other groups backing into them? It's really hard to have that information. So with this example here, Mario, this is not even your course, and obviously it's in Arizona, it's far away, but you could look at any course right now that I could pull up, and you would be able to see what's happening. So what can you read and hear, and how would your team respond if they were given this sort of information?
Absolutely. The efficiency is unbelievable, and after a while, you just look at a map when you've been looking at your golf course so long, and you don't need to know a whole lot about the golf course. This looks like a pretty large facility, so to ride around this golf course to look for an issue the old-fashioned way prior to Tagmarshal, by the time you arrived at the problem, it might be too late, and the experience for many, many golfers are ruined. So here I would go to number 10, the magenta, and you could see that they've got they're out of position. So just simply going straight to them and having information, you could say, look, I know that you've played 3 really tough holes. You can see on the pace trend that their last 3 holes there's been some issues. You weren't there to see it, but just the fact that you could tell them, look, you were doing great, and now you've had some tough time. Let me stay here. Let me help you. You're now 7 minutes out of position, but I feel confident that if I stay and help you find some balls or maybe rake some bunkers, etc., we can make up the space in between you and the group in front. So that's a real efficient way to tackle this situation, and you can just go right to the issue, and then you can focus on other areas of the operation.
That ties in really nicely with a question that was just asked. How much time do you spend, and do you allocate a staff member? You said you don't have a marshal. I don't know if you ever had. A lot of the clubs that start working with us saying, well, we don't need a marshal because the technology takes that function over. We rather have somebody who is more service oriented and send them out and have these conversations now, or with a two-way, we can actually just ping a message to the players. So how much time do you spend managing the pace? That was the question. And you mentioned efficiencies. So what would you say? And obviously, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but you've learned a lot about your course and what days, what weather, when does it matter, so that you can prepare your team ahead of time as well. How much time do you guys spend with the tech now?
So we take a holistic approach. We're all like I said, have it on our cell phones. We have it at the podium. We have it in the golf shop. We have it in the back office. So everyone's looking at it all the time. So we communicate really well. Obviously, our outside operations team, if one of them left their post, then we would be understaffed. But I try to be the one whenever I have time to go out there, because it gives me a chance to interact with my members that perhaps I was on a lesson or I missed when they teed off. But I can't always be the one. So any of our assistant golf professionals, our outside director will call over the radio. Hey, come in, Kevin. We have an issue on the 3rd hole. Can you please go out there and take a look? So we spend a lot of time looking at it, and we try to get right to the issue. And We've learned from the reports. I mean, we could do some really incredible reports. I've asked for reports for specific days and how many players. And what we've learned is our biggest, let me backtrack a little bit. Our first year, so we have 2 full seasons using TrackMan. And I became a head golf professional, and it coincided with a new golf chair. And anytime you have, historically, when you have new leadership like that, you know, what are the issues? What's my campaign promise, right? Just like, you know, the president, I'm going to raise the minimum wage. Well, I'm going to improve pace of play, right? So, and what are we going to do to that? So we wanted to look for technology that would educate us about our golf course, because we didn't really know, you know, we knew what the recommended pace was, but we didn't really know who this, you think you know who the slow players are, but you want to have information. You want to have data, objective data. And we want to know how long it takes to play. So our year 1 was really about learning and gathering information. And then year 2 was about putting that data into play. So we learned that our busiest, we learned we didn't have an issue in the early morning tee times on the weekends. Those players like to play fast. So learning that, we've incorporated variable pace. So before 8:30, the pace is not 4:05, it's 3:55, because 4:05 can feel quite slow if you teed off at 6:45. We learned that on Fridays and weekend afternoons, when we start allowing our members to bring guests, that's when we had the most issues. So having a conversation with and if you're a member bringing a guest to Quaker Ridge, the guests have, it could be a business thing. It could be a friend that for a long time you've promised to bring. I mean, it's a really important experience. So to go to someone on the 5th hole and say, hey, you know, there's a pace of play issue, it's not the best way to do it. So for those times when we learned we had the biggest issues, we speak to the member before they tee off and let them know that, you know, we are tracking, and we realize when you're playing with guests, 3 people, this tough golf course, 3 people that perhaps have never seen the course, that it can be, you know, a challenge, but that we're watching will come out and help. And just getting that out front, it just changes the expectation, so that when you have an interaction on the golf course, is totally different and more positive. I hope I answered. You hit me with a couple of questions, but I think I covered.
You absolutely did. So one of the things you guys have done famously well in terms of your improvement, you started off a decent base, but I want to just jump ahead and look at some stats here quickly. So this is something that you guys would look at on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So here's, this is a month view. So it gives you every single day and how you've come through versus your goal time. You mentioned you're using dynamic goal times where you're starting the day quicker because it pulls along the pace. So it's not a one size fits all target any longer. You've got your individual holes and how they performed. One of the questions that has come through, well, I'll ask you just now, but one of the things that you guys are really excelling in is what we call that pace distribution, which shows you what percentage of my groups have come through on pace or within 10 minutes. And this shows that 90% have had a great flow round with no interruptions and coming through on pace or within 10. It's only a very small fraction of people who are a bit over. And this is really one of the success benchmarks that you have. So one of the questions that was asked, Mario, is, have you learned about your setups and what have you learned in terms of your rough setups and your conditioning and how it and your pin placements and how it impacts? And is that something that that you also get together with your supers and so on, just to provide the best possible experience?
Absolutely. So this page right here teaches you a lot about that and can answer that question. On the bottom left, you can see the hole by hole stats, and that's something that we look at very carefully. So if we see that a hole is playing a lot more difficult time-wise, in other words, it's taking a lot longer to play that hole on a particular day, we can look down here at the bottom left and see that. And and that certainly has an impact on communicating with our superintendent and our golf course staff that perhaps the whole location is not in the right place. Look, every hole at Quaker Ridge can be hard. So we want to make sure that we're setting up the golf course, particularly in the times that we learned tend to be the slowest, in a way that helps the flow and the pace of play. Go ahead.
Mario, we need to stay on pace. So I just want to, we can talk for hours, and I know you're immensely passionate both about Quaker and the experience you're providing, and also about the tech that helps you do it. I just want to jump ahead a tiny bit in that one question was asked, and I think it's a question that gets asked a lot, and it's something that we want to cover. What has the members' response been? Was there initially some pushback and a sense of big brother's watching and now they're going to go find me out and I don't like it because of that? Or how have you guys introduced it, and what's the response been, and where are you sitting now with it? Is it something that you would say is an asset to Quaker Ridge?
I think Tagmarshal is an incredible asset to our team and to our member experience. So the member response actually, so to go back when the new golf chair came in and I came in as a head golf professional, we knew the importance of pace of play and understanding it better and setting those expectations. So we knew we needed to create a pace of play culture. And how do you create a pace of play culture? By educating yourselves and the members about how long it takes to play, how long it should take to play, and what are the consequences of not playing to that set pace. So one of the things that we started to do is that we started sending our members basically a screenshot of their map, of their track map while they were playing, similar to this picture right here. Actually, exactly this picture right here. And then we had a tagline, and we thanked them for playing ahead of our desired 405 pace of play, and we appreciated their efforts. And we gave them how long it took them to play. And then we also, if they weren't on that pace, we let them know that their pace was, we actually we weren't going to give anybody a letter or ask them to meet with the golf committee unless they played in over 4 hours and 20 minutes, even though our pace is 405, because we wanted to educate and create that culture. So if they were played in 415, we sent them an email and we would say, although you played in less than 420, we would like you to know that we would hope that you would play a little bit faster, et cetera, next time that you play. And the response was incredible. I had our members, as they finished their round, coming up to me if they saw me walking around, Mario, well, how fast did I play? When am I going to get my emails? So that was really terrific. And I spoke to you, Bodo, and your team, and I said, look, I think this is an asset for you to have as an option where the players at a private golf course like Quaker Ridge get an automatic email letting them know how fast they played or how slowly they played, with sort of like a sentence of information. And that certainly, because it was taking me a lot of time to do it, but that helped tremendously in creating that culture. So the response was amazing for us and our members. And that we've seen that. Our first year, we averaged right above 405. And this past season, we were, about 10 minutes faster on average.
I think one of the key things is that 10 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot if you consider that you're balancing the experience for everybody. And also, if you have 200 people out there and you're saving them 10 minutes, accumulatively, that is a lot of time that these guys can now spend. Also, maybe last year there were 5 groups that went 40 minutes over. This year they're not. So those are the big differences generally that we're finding. And you mentioned it earlier. Younger members, they have got the choice, obviously, where am I going to join? And if there's a club that does it better and provides a consistent experience, that has to count for something. So in terms of how do your members at Quaker talk about the pace of play at Quaker and very, very often they'd be at a dinner or they play somewhere else and somebody will have a rant about pace of play or slow play. How have you found that they take ownership of that culture that you've created, and what has it done for you guys in terms of recruitment of new members as well?
Well, let me tell you something. I know those dinner conversations are happening because I've had several calls from local clubs, other clubs like Quaker Ridge, from the head golf professionals or their general managers or board members, asking me about Tagmarshal and what we're doing. So that's great. I guess that net promoter score is pretty high if our members are having dinners with members from other clubs and talking about Tagmarshal. So that's great for you and for I. So and as far as for younger members, I think that if they can know that they can consistently tee off and play in a certain amount of time, they can plan their family activities better. They'll have less static when they get home. You know,
you are a politician. Nice.
You know, they won't have a passive aggressive spouse. You know, and they'll come out to the club more, and perhaps, like you said, if they play in 3 hours, but their spouses expected them to be home in 4.5 hours, then they'll hang out and have a bite to eat or something like that.
Okay, so Mario, we need to stay on pace. So this is our last just 2 minutes on how has it contributed to your operational financial success? If you want to just fly through quickly, you mentioned efficiencies, and how do you quantify your obviously your net promoter score, how your survey rankings are, they're sky high. And then one of the things that we've learned is that often the pace of play is something that is a bit of a lightning rod. When things are perceived as being not so going so well, people start finding issues, right? So and if that's the one emotional thing that you're doing really well, that just doesn't happen. So what have you guys found in terms of operational impact and obviously financial potential as well at Quaker, being really good at implementing those?
Well, I'll start with the thing that you can quantify is not having to hire and staff a marshal or a ranger, and getting more efficient use out of the current staff that you have. And in general, I think golfers have a negative opinion about rangers and marshals, and like your friend who's prepared to give him $20 just to keep him away. Just stay away, right? Just pay the guy to stay away, or the woman to stay away. But so right there, that's a financial impact, and it allows me and our staff to be the ones that go and say hello to the members and have a positive interaction. For us, we it's all about the member experience. So if our members are excited, and we have done surveys and the reviews are high and they're happy, then to us, that's the operational and financial impact, because we want to retain our members and we want them talking at dinner parties about how great Quaker Ridge is, and hopefully attracting new potential members for sure. So there's 100%, I see it as an important aspect to those two impacts.
So if you are member-led and golfer-led, and you know that this is a top 3 topic for them and you're doing it well, that has to pay dividends. But here's an example of a club that is in Wisconsin, and they had an sort of a bit of a negative culture, and they had members run away, and they got on top of it because it was a usual complaint. I can't get a tee time in on a Saturday. You know, when I want to play, you're too busy. And then when I do play, it takes 5 hours and all of those things. So they just nipped that in the bud by implementing the technology and doing it really well. And they've said that we have gained 12 members and we have turned around a really negative trend. We're back at capacity, 12 members in one season that have a value to us, and that they've really gone and quantified, and we've got many others do that too. And obviously in the daily fee space, it's easy to quantify if you can get additional tee-off times by creating more capacity, if you can get additional food and beverage spend by making sure that people come off the course happier and they've got more time available and all those things. So it can be quantified. and that's obviously something that we're trying to do in terms of reporting as well. So we can show you, look, here's your before and after. Won't you correlate data that shows how you've actually improved also in a way that that impresses your board? So that is one of the questions that's just come in. What are the sort of things that that you're presenting to your committee on, and how often do you do it? And is it something that, in terms of reports, you mentioned that the Tagmarshal team helps you generate sort of year-end reports. What are the sort of highlights, and how is it helping your reporting?
I'm a kind of person who loves these reports. So I'm always emailing your team and saying, hey, can I get a, I just want Friday 2 balls before 12 p.m. or I want, foursomes on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that I can speak to these about these days and these rounds to our golf chair and our golf committee. So there's unlimited reports that you can pull, and that's always a lot of fun. So certainly it equips a head golf professional or a general manager of a golf course to go in and have a meeting with a committee and use these reports, these facts, this objective data to whether they need more staff on certain days, certain times. It's very powerful if you can show them exactly why you're asking for the things that you need to improve the member interaction.
And no committee would ever say, no, we don't care about our member experience, right? So if you can quantify that and you say, here we know exactly what we need to do. And maybe just one, there's been quite a few questions. One question is, would you consider design adjustments or maybe setup adjustments on the basis of what you've learned? And we have seen this often, that especially when it comes to adjusting the rough or not considering certain pin placements, depending on who's coming in to play. Is that something that that you've done? Yeah, obviously it's tough to effect a big design change. It costs a lot of money, but sometimes there's smaller gains, and it might be a tree that you're taking out. It might be a bunker that you're adjusting. Is that something that you're keeping tabs on? Do you feel like the data that you have would help you do that if you were to make a decision like that?
We have used it to make those decisions. Certainly when the green speeds are at, like we have at Quaker Ridge, which are very fast, where you put the hole locations can affect how long it takes to get off the green. But another one that it's not always making a hole easier or shorter. If you see that your par fives are playing really slowly, it could be because the players are waiting to go for the green in 2 shots rather than in 3 shots. So on busy days, perhaps making a short par 5 a little bit longer so it's not reachable can actually help pace of play. And all of these things you can learn by looking at your hole by hole chart. So absolutely, that's a great question. And that's definitely a way that we use the information we acquire from Tagmarshal.
Great answer too. Thank you, Mario. Are there any more questions? I've got Natalie, our marketing manager, sitting next to me. Any more questions that we've missed? And thank you so much to everyone who's on here for asking all these good questions. We've got another minute or two. Here's one popping in. Let's see. Many thanks for your answers. Okay, that's Petra van Skelven. Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Any more questions? Let's shout. And you guys all saw the poll results where everybody rated conditioning as number 1 and pace number 2, and then there was a big mix and mash around all the other factors. Accessibility is important, and that's something that obviously you can often play a role in. Are there any more questions? If they're not, any parting thoughts from your side, Mario? What do you tell the guys who phone you and ask you, so what's this thing like? Is it working?
Well, I'm a big fan, and I tell them that for us it's something that we use daily and has helped us tremendously understand how fast we play, when we have issues, how to deal with issues. When you I also tell them, some of the learning curves that we had to go through, making sure the tags went out. Bodo actually visit us. So it's another great thing about a company when the CEO personally comes to see you. And he came with Rob, one of the head technology guys, and they created a geofence around our property so that if any tag left the property, I would get a text. So that really helped. I think our first year, inevitably a couple of tags get put in golf bags and then they end up in another state or another golf club. And so that was really helpful. But just being able to speak directly to the CEO and all of the people at Tagmarshal are really terrific, always willing to help. So I've got nothing but praise. I've asked for that automatic email to go out, and you guys have worked to develop that. It's been a great relationship. So to us, it's a really important part of our operation. And so I should probably start getting some commission, I think.
we'll pay you in dinners and beer when we do get to see you, like at the
Sounds
PGA
good. That's
Mario,
good
one more
currency.
question that was asked: how do you handle? And this is something I think where you've got a great advantage in being integrated with 40s, because you are collecting data throughout the season. And if somebody plays with you 30 times, you know exactly where they stand in terms of their pace. As far as the club's pace is concerned. So the question was, how do you handle chronically slow players? In the past, we used to send out a letter, and it's obviously a very emotional thing. How has having this information helped you do that, and how do you do it now?
Well, like I mentioned before, first year was about gathering information, and in year two was coming up with a pace of play policy. So our pace of play policy was this past season was if you play in over 4 hours and 20 minutes, then you would get a warning letter from the golf committee. Now that this would just inform you that it's unacceptable to play in that amount of time and that we hope that you do better. Please go see Mario or any one of the golf professionals, and basically they'll help you come up with solutions on how to play faster. And then we would just, there's little things you can do, right, to play faster. I saw something that the RNA put out that it said if every player took 5 seconds less per shot, the round, regardless of the pace that round was played, would be 30 minutes faster. So if you're a 330 foursome and each player took 5 seconds less, next time they play on each shot, you'd play in 3 hours. That was a really powerful thing, because when you put it in those numbers, everybody feels they could save 5 seconds per shot. So little things like that, tips on how to play faster for players that are traditionally slow. Having a policy is really important, I think, to go along with Tagmarshal, and making it about helping rather than embarrassing somebody. I know places they post everyone's times for people to see. We don't do that. We just want to make sure that our members are having nothing but great experiences. So that's how we sort of deal with the slow players.
And it must help tremendously, especially you're dealing with 8-type New Yorkers, right? If you have real data to look at and it's not opinion, because it's hard to win an argument if it's opinion and emotion get in the way. So Mario, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. We're 1 minute over now.
Oh boy, send the marshal out.
No, some brilliant questions also from there was one question from JJ. What was the technology that you use to identify members as they arrive? I believe that's the app, right? And which app did you go with, or is it a custom thing?
Yeah, it's a custom app that we had a company called Pacesetter developed. So if our members have, which we encourage all of them to have their location services on as soon as they drive through the gate, we have a geofence there. And we have on our tablet, which has Tagmarshal, it has the app up. They can make requests to us. They want their clubs on a cart. They want their clubs on the range. There's many ways that they communicate with us through that app. And we know when they're on and when to leave. So many times in the past, I remember getting calls from spouses. Is my husband or is my wife there? and we would know, if they're still playing, thanks to Tagmarshal. First, we would know if they're on property, and then we would locate them with Tagmarshal. So it's really helped us. It's called Pacesetter was the developer, and if you can download it, if you're a member, you just download it under Quaker Ridge app.
Got you. One more question from Petra. Would you say Tagmarshal should be seen as an investment to improve the customer experience, or is it an investment in efficiencies that helps you get rid of staff?
Both.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it's certainly, we already established the importance of the pace and flow that it has on the overall experience, and then the fact that you won't have to employ a marshal or a ranger and be more efficient with the staff you have. So I think both.
Yeah, we're finding that often is that traditional sort of policing mode marshal really does not add a lot of value to what's happening on the course, and that role really can be turned around. You remember one of the photos that we looked at was a lady play assistant out on the course who just has the information or can have these conversations. She doesn't need to be imposing or anything. It's just sharing information, helping and assisting players. And she or whoever's on your team can obviously fulfill many other functions that are more service driven than just going driving around hour upon hour on the course looking for problems. So it does both. You're quite, that's a short answer. Okay, I'm sure there'd be many more questions, but we do want to be mindful of time. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Mario, for giving so freely of your time and expertise. Really appreciate it. What we will do is we will send out the video recording of this so you can relook at it in your own time, and you can share it. And obviously, we will have more webinars coming up. Yeah, if you have any specific questions or ideas, things that you think we should shine a light on, let us know. Always willing to help where we can. Mario, thank you so much, and we hope to see you soon. Certainly, my next trip to New York, I'll be stopping by and having a deluxe turkey sandwich at your halfway house.
All right, and then you're taking me out for a beer.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, my man.
Okay, thanks, Mario. Thanks everyone.
Everybody. Take care. Bye.